Alright, I'm a busy little bear, so I'm not wasting time with this one. If you want the long poo, watch the long poo. We're going through each and every era of this bear, describing and defining the traits that set it apart from the rest. No MVs, no reviews, probably, maybe, I don't know, but still lots and lots of complaining. Let's kick things off.
Can you read? Can you read or not, Randy?
Of course I can
In November of 1924, when I was just a teenager, father and author A.A. Milne released a collection of poetry called When We Were Very Young. Page 85 of that book contains a poem called Teddy Bear about a fat little stuffed bear named Edward reading some books and meeting the King of France. As one does. During the introduction of this book, Milne does mention Pooh, but it's not the bear, it's a swan. Put the Adam Sandler, I get you swan, or whatever the f he says in there. It's a swan, which is a concept I'm finding hard to explain without using that weird childlike double talk that Milne and therefore Pooh are so famous for. Is so famous for? I'm illiterate. That's what makes it hard for me to do these videos, people. I can't read and write no good. But we'll get into that later. It's basically just a kid being weird, okay? On Christmas Eve in 1925, in the London Evening News, the world was introduced to our Pooh for the very first time in The Wrong Sort of Bees. Honestly, you could go back even farther than any of this, to that stuffed bear A.A. Milne got for his son at a local department store, but that copy of the Evening News was the first time the name Winnie the Pooh was used. They hit a real Sonic Adventure 1 Eggman type thing on Edward Bear at the start of The Wrong Sort of Bees. That story would turn into Chapter 1 of 1926's Winnie the Pooh, which Milne would follow up with 1928's The House at Pooh Corner. Most of the classic Pooh stories we know, Pooh getting stuck in the hole, Pooh using the balloon to piss the bees off, Piglet and Roo switching places, are all taken from these two books. Actually, all the ones I named are from the first book, but you get what I mean. Milne would also follow up his collection of poetry between the release of the Pooh books with Now We Are Six in 1927, which Pooh was all over, his brand firmly rocking and rolling by this point. I haven't read all the poetry, but I've read both the Pooh books, and I obviously love them. It's incredible to me how Milne's voice, that childlike innocence creating profound insight in its simplicity, is something we really saw roll over into the voice of Pooh himself. Of course, Pooh talks like this in the books too, but that voice really bleeds out in every single word of these.
Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy.
Also called the Scratchy era, this is more so how this era of Disney as a whole is described. That's right, folks, this guy's here now. Barring a legal battle that reached into dang near the 2010s, Disney scooped up Pooh in 1961, licensing it from the Milne estate and agent Stephen Schlesinger. According to the story, Walt overheard his daughter laughing at the Pooh books from another room, and he decided that he's got to have Winnie. Who knows how true that story is? In fact, there's a fair amount of mystery surrounding Pooh and Disney's relationship as a whole. I'm not just talking about the shredded legal documents, you can go to Headache for that. I'm talking about the origins of the 1977 classic The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. The story goes that Walt knew American audiences weren't quite ready for Pooh, only being aware of him through a couple books from those dirty nasty Brits who we had just bailed out of WW2, by the way. In my big Greasy Pooh retrospective, I cited this story as fact, but again, we're not really sure. But no matter the reasoning, it was over 10 years of these shorts before we got the feature-length picture. And that started with 1966's Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree. And that first short was actually based on the story of The Wrong Sort of Bees, with that being said exactly in the cartoon.
These are the wrong sorts of bees.
Honey Tree was followed by Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day in 1968. My personal favorite part of the picture. And then in besides the ending though, I guess I didn't really count the ending. And then in 1974, Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2 released. When Many Adventures hit theaters, there was additional content tacked onto these short films, the ending I talked about earlier, and that really established a go-to format for Winnie the Pooh releases. And I hear ya, you're saying, K-Mac, baby, that's f***ing cool and all, but why is it called the Xerox era? Well, that's because Walt would stress out the animators so much with no budgets and deadlines, they'd have to take about 20 milligrams of Xerox every few hours as to not collapse under the pressure of the sweatbox. And something to do with copiers, I guess, too. Okay, I'll explain it. It's called the Xerox era, or alternatively the Scratchies era, because of Ub Iwerks, the co-creator of both Mickey Mouse and Oswald, and a man whose name sounds like a 2010s tech startup. Ubisoft here pioneered the cost-saving measure of xerography when he returned to Disney later in his career, who were experiencing a very rough patch in their animation department, coming out of a less than stellar theatrical performance of Sleeping Beauty. Is that right? Is the timeline of that correct? Oh no. Imagine doing research and spilling your coffee everywhere. Wow. I'm looking it up before I clean it up. I don't even care. That's how important being right is to me. When did Sleeping Beauty come out? Yeah, 59. That checks out. Yeah, 59. That checks out. Alright, this method of scanning shit with a copier, which can now scan in color, instead of drawing it over and over by hand, saved the company and created the scratchy look associated with films like Robin Hood, 101 Dalmatians, no not that one, and of course the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh. They also got rid of their entire inking department, which happened to be all women, but hey, story for a different day. You also had the educational short Winnie the Pooh Discovers the Seasons in 1981, where funny drunk Otis from the Andy Griffith Show replaces Sterling Holloway as Pooh, and honestly does a pretty dang good job, all things considered.
This has been a very nice afternoon, a very full afternoon, but could we go to Owl's house now?
Hal Smith would voice him once again in Winnie the Pooh and A Day for Eeyore in 1983, before the franchise would kinda lay low for about half a decade, other than the nightmare fuel that is House at Pooh Corner, which ran from 83 to 86. And I guess you also had Russian Pooh early on in this era, but I don't care. Get out of my comments about him. I will not acknowledge this as Pooh. I love my country. Mr. Gordy, check, tear down this. Oh yeah, now we're cooking, baby. Your boy is now alive and almost sentient. For real this time. Starting on Disney Channel in 1988 before bouncing over to ABC, which is where I would be exposed to it, The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is truly peak Pooh in so many ways. I'm not gonna puke up my love for Finder Keeper again, but if you know this series, you know how good it is. Mostly because good golly gosh, Christopher Robin has tennis shoes now. Like a true patriot. Not this Oliver Twist ass he was rocking before. All jokes aside though, this really is an Americanized Winnie the Pooh. And as you could tell from my Vinnie the Putin comments earlier, this is a video from a very American perspective, whether I coded in patriotic irony or not. That division around the world, particularly between British Pooh and American Pooh, goes back as far as those Disney shorts way back when, the whole Piglet controversy. But when it comes to New Adventures, honestly, I look at Christopher Robin's shoes and of course his American accent.
Oh no! I got it! I'm gonna get it.
As signs of how USA pilled this franchise really has become. Plus, C-Rob's a dang spoiled brat now.
Maybe you've been in the family for generations, but I've been in this house all day. And I think I ought to get to go out.
The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh was first schemed up by Walt Disney Television Animation Vice President Gary Kreisel on a Disney executive retreat, which I'm glad they had time to think about Winnie the Pooh between the orgies and adrenochrome. Kreisel proposed Pooh as a quote-unquote great character for Saturday morning animation, and he wasn't wrong, with New Adventures taking home a plethora of awards, including back-to-back Emmys and 2 Humanitas prizes. Even putting our boy front and center for that weird-ass anti-drug McDonald's-funded cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue in 1990.
Tell Pooh Bear to mind his own business.
What's wrong with your eyes?
Marijuana.
Yeah, crack. Now we're talking.
They really made the black kid from Recess a crackhead. That's fucked up. According to sources, New Adventures used nearly twice as many animation cells as a typical cartoon, boasting more drawings per minute than any other TV program at the time. The animation for this series was outsourced internationally to places like South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. And places with white people too. I think South Wales was mentioned. South Wales is white people, right? Disney would turn the momentum of New Adventure's success into a number of home releases, including Pooh's Grand Adventure in '97, which very much sported the high-stakes, wild fantasy imagination elements that you would find in New Adventures. And it wasn't just the themes of this show that stuck around for a while after the run was over. Specials like 1998's A Winnie the Pooh Thanksgiving and 1999's Winnie the Pooh A Valentine for You not only looked just like New Adventures, but they both aired on ABC. 91's Winnie the Pooh and Christmas 2, despite being over a decade old at that point, was even recycled as a part of 2002's A Very Merry Pooh Year, which in my mind really shows how good New Adventures was. You also had Book of Pooh, a Playhouse Disney puppet show that aired from 2001 to 2003. Despite coming so late in this era, it's pretty easy for me to group this show in with New Adventures due to the presence of Kessie, a character from the aforementioned critically and Killianly acclaimed New Adventures episode, Finder Keeper. And that's it, I do believe. Nothing else to mention in this era. We are good to move on.
Oh, crap.
The Tigger movie. The goddamn Tigger movie. A solid picture, don't get me wrong, but it really throws things off for me, because honestly, it belongs in the following era, really being a predecessor to...
Husband Hotel is well known for its deep lore and world building.
Yes, 2003 was both in the Roo era and the New Adventures era. Book of Pooh ended in July, so split that sucker right down the middle as far as I'm concerned. Now we're talking everything after that, besides the Tigger movie, which already messed everything up, but who cares? You probably noticed that this is shorter than any other era so far, but they were busy during this time. I guess I should start by explaining this Tigger movie situation.
Now, Dana told me about that big snake situation.
The Tigger movie firmly belongs in the Roo era because despite the title of the picture, this really is Baby Roo's coming out party. He's always played the little brother role to Tigger, and that put him in a position to really be the heart of this film. A role that he excels in and really ties the plot together. A plot, well, the song specifically, that was good enough to get a Pooh movie into theaters for the first time in 23 years. And I think it was then that the big wigs at Disney realized the untapped potential of Roo. The relatability of an ADHD little kid to a 2000s audience. Like I said, Roo's always been Tigger's little brother, the troublemaker falling into the stream in the first book. He's a character that's braver and bolder than Piglet, but he can still garner that sympathy when he's in distress. But he always took a back seat to characters like Pooh, C-Rob, and even Eeyore until his role in the Tigger movie blossomed into him being arguably the third or fourth most important little guy in the entire franchise. Sure, we saw Piglet get his own movie and a weirdly meme-famous game in 2003, but Roo plays such a pivotal role in both of those, and would continue to do so during, obviously, 2004 Springtime with Roo and all the lumpy content we'd get for over half a decade after that. Who, I guess, is the heffalump in the room at this point? I won't bitch and moan too much more about how I despise this annoying ass character, but I will, for better or worse, tell you about how he served as the foil for Roo during this time, and to highlight the traits of Roo we all loved initially by being, for lack of a better word, a wuss, which honestly foiled those traits of being bold and hyperactive to the point of annoying, which is a feeling that's doubled by how pussy Lumpy is, who's got a lot of catching up to do with a character like Piglet in terms of emotional investment. But I said I wouldn't bitch too much, so moving on. This is also the era where we saw Pooh go 3D. If you watched pretty much any video about cartoons on this channel, you know how I hate these kinds of 3D reworks of classic characters, which probably trickles down into how much I dislike this purple fuck. But Lumpy is the exact reason this time period is lumped in with the Roo era. Not proud of that one. Lumpy, whose whole original purpose was to be Roo's bestie, is still around in My Friends Tigger and Pooh, which started in 2007. 2 years after the movies that introduced Lumpy. The Lumpster rolled over to this in the same way Kessie rolled over into the Book of Pooh series from Finder Keeper. But Lumpy was a 100-acre wood vet by this point compared to, I don't know, Mr. Beetle or whatever the fuck. Yeah, that's right. In this series, you got beetles and beavers and porcupines and chameleons and fucking Slender Man is there, I think. It could be argued that they're all allusions to Rabbit's friends and relations from the first book, but that's a lot of credit to give. And I'm not even mentioning Mary Sue Darby over here.
That's my echo we're hearing, Tigger. An echo was the sound of your own voice bouncing back at you.
God damn, I told you there was a lot in a short period, and I probably still missed something, but honestly, I don't care. Fuck this era, except Springtime with Rue, that shit rules.
Some nasty stuffed animals on my porch.
And that's kind of what Disney seemingly said for a bit too, not really doing much with Pooh until they realized public domain was looming just a few years later. But a little fire was lit under their booty butts once My Friends Tigger and Pooh ended in 2010. Don't get me wrong, the merch never stopped. Pooh's real treasure trove is putting a red shirt on him and selling it to moms. And me! But during this era, we started to see Disney take a couple really big swings at the Winnie the Pooh franchise. The first of which being a 2011 movie simply titled Winnie the Pooh. Like I said, the Tigger movie and also Piglet's big movie, even the dang first Heffalump movie were all theatrical releases. But this was different. Some call it a revival, some call it a reboot, some even refer to it as a direct sequel to Mini Adventures. But no matter how you look at it, this is a clear step up from previous Pooh films. But that mentality went a little too far at times, in my opinion, as it was around this time that we started getting the mini, M-I-N-I, adventures of Winnie the Pooh on Disney's animation YouTube channel, which were classic Pooh moments, both new and old, but dubbed over with the cast of the 2011 movie.
If I have to face that thing for months, well, I might as well make the best of it.
It's a talented cast, sure, but if I'm watching the classic clips, then I want the classic clips. You're gonna give me Travis Oates Piglet instead of John Fielder? Plus, the mixing sounds terrible. And all the clips are edited to speed up the pacing, but that absolutely loses the little charm that these travesties have left. Jim Cummings is great though, an angel from heaven who can do no wrong.
What's a Pooh?
You're sitting on one.
I am? Oh, well, glad to meet you.
I guess the reboot bombed from Disney's perspective, because not only was the franchise dead for almost 10 years, but 2011's Winnie the Pooh is what, according to some, killed off 2D animation for Disney films. This being the last of its kind, coming 2 years after Princess and the Frog. In some ways, though, the wait was worth it, because in 2018, we got the absolute banger that is Christopher Robin. Some people point this out as the start of the live-action remake hellhole we're in now, but one, it's not a remake, and two, we had the best to ever do it, doing it way back when, so it's not a problem with the format, Walt. What this picture was, though, was a beautiful cap on the Disney Pooh run. All the references are done in a way that's not like, hey, look, it's that thing. They're homages, they're character consistencies, they're just how Pooh is, deeply ingrained into the DNA of the property. God damn, what a beautiful film. But cinemas weren't the only spot Pooh was having an impact. In 2012, Japanese gamers started to catch on to the difficulty of the later stages of Winnie the Pooh's Home Run Derby, a browser flash game that would blow up on American message boards a year later, eventually being covered by publications. Do I even like that sentence? Complex talked about it, okay? That's what I was going to say, but I don't even like the way I wrote that. Yeah, Complex talked about Winnie the Pooh. I don't even know if Complex is like a magazine no more. I don't know nothing. To this day, you'll see memes about the game along with this classic Pooh meme, which started popping up around that same time. Beginning as just a picture of Pooh looking like he doesn't give a shit. Around 2019, a
Reddit user
stuck a tuxedo on this sucker to create what is now referred to as a fellow man of taste, or more commonly, Tuxedo Pooh. That's 6 years between popular Pooh memes of the same frame. That's almost the length of the entire Roo era. I mentioned the meme status of Piglet's Big Game earlier, it being compared to Resident Evil, but the Pooh memes are so out of hand at this point, they pissed off the leader of China. But that would come a few years later.
Winnie the Pooh? But he do the murder.
Yeah, Disney's got a play date with Winnie the Pooh, and I think it has a sister series too. But even if this video's around 100 years from now, I still feel safe calling it the public domain era. Because there's no uniformity in Pooh anymore. In true meme culture fashion, everybody has their hands in him now. Not like that, well, I guess it is like that. This here is Winnie's Hole. Isn't that just wonderful? Winnie's Hole is supposedly an upcoming Steam game from developers twice different. And it's just one example of the horror content we've gotten now that Pooh's public domain. I'm not gonna explain copyright or public domain, there's smart people who can do that better. But just know that starting in 2022, Winnie the Pooh, no red shirt, was available for commercial use without asking the Milne Estate or Disney for shit. And boy, oh boy, this has led to some terrible Pooh content. Like everyone's favorite, the Blood and Honey series, which I guess is now expanding to what's being referred to as the Twisted Childhood Universe, with other public domain bastardizations like Mutant Bambi and Pedophilic Peter Pan. That is a fun phrase to say though. I'm not going to say it too many times because YouTube.com will take all my money away, my $16 that I make from this video. The second Blood and Honey might have been goofy enough to work, but I don't know about all this.
I've never been more disinterested in a new multiverse type nonsense than the Dark Universe with Tom Cruise.
What's even scarier than that, though, is the upcoming series from the Cartoon Channel that's going to air on Amazon Prime. I don't want to Winnie the Pooh something that hasn't come out yet, but apparently this series is AI assisted. To what extent? No clue. Gotta wait and see to really give my thoughts. But just reacting off the headlines like a good millennial, I'm not crazy about the evil robots cranking out this weird looking content that started as this sweet little bedtime story for a child 100 years ago. I'm just saying. AI slop is always going to be faster than something made by real people. And horror movies can be created pretty quickly because oftentimes they're some of the more affordable and simple movies to make. But I don't want to act like it's all doom and gloom for Pooh Bear. Because if you take a step back, you realize that the Pooh franchise is finally in the hands of people that care. Not Disney, not Amazon, not some cash grab horror studio, but fans. Real Pooh fans. Like you and me.